Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of What the FinTech, a podcast from the team behind FinTech Futures and the Banking Technology magazine. My name is Paul Hindle, editor of FinTech Futures, and for this episode we're joined by Kristen Castell, Managing Director of the Centre for Accelerating Financial Equity, also known as CAFE. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Excellent. It's great to have you here. And just to get started, would you like to quickly let us know a bit more about yourself and CAFE?
Yeah, great. So I lead CAFE, Center for Accelerating Financial Equity. We are a nonprofit with a mission to advance financial health and wellness for our low to moderate income people. And we do that through a couple ways, but one is our flagship FinTech Accelerator program. So working with a lot of amazing founders and startups. I had a very interesting career before this, more traditionally in a Wall Street executive turned impact entrepreneur, part of building a FinTech, and now organization leader and community builder.
Excellent. Sounds great. And again, great to have you here. And thanks so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. So on the show this week, we'll be discussing the topic of financial health and wellness and what the financial services industry can be doing more of to support customers amid the tough macroeconomic climate globally. We'll explore how new technologies and fintech innovations are helping companies to boost their financial wellness initiatives. And we'll also learn more about, as you just mentioned there, Kristen, the work CAFE is doing in the space, including a deep dive into the organization's Spring Accelerator program, which sees CAFE working with financial wellness-focused fintech startups to support their growth. So to start off then, Kristen, I mean, you've just touched on things there, but can you tell us a little bit more about your career so far and your journey from starting out with financial services giants like JP Morgan and BlackRock before moving into that fintech startup and entrepreneurial arena?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting, non-traditional journey. A lot of fun stuff in my journey. So I started out more traditionally, decade and a half in more traditional asset managers, BlackRock for a decade, and then JP Morgan twice. At those large corporates, I was mainly building investment products. And what that means is really working with all the different people and expertise. So on understanding the sales side, working with those executives, understanding what we can actually build on the investment side, working with technology, legal, operations, bringing everyone around the table to design, build, and launch products, specifically mutual funds, and then large investment platforms. So at JP Morgan, led the product development of a $20 billion asset manager in the private bank. And what I realized when I was building in corporate is I love building. I love working with all the different people and really bringing everything together and building. And also connecting that to what actually we're doing for the end people. So how are these products that we're building really helping people grow their wealth for retirement? How are they helping their lives? Also, while I was in corporate, I got really interested in when I learned about impact investing. And at that time, I did receive a lot of pushback on what that is. So what I really loved about it is how do we connect what companies are doing, really how they're treating their people, and then how efficient are their operations? And there's a financial materiality to long-term value of a company when you're thinking about also not only shareholder value, but also stakeholder value. And so I was really passionate kind of as a side project on that area for a long time. And so I made a challenging decision, but awesome decision to leave corporate around the time of the pandemic and be part of a founding team of a fintech startup and really build that startup from 0 to 1. That's a startup for values aligned investing. So awesome experience and learning, just being an entrepreneur out in the world, building something I'm passionate about, selling, learning about the VC space, all of it. And after a few years with that, when I moved on, I was really looking to stay in the space. I was already meeting amazing founders and startups and wanted to stay in the fintech space. So I also do something for the social impact. So I got connected to a group where we would launch a CAFE. So they brought me in to launch and lead CAFE as a separate nonprofit, really for this purpose, for really advancing financial health and wellness for LMI people. And what was awesome is I got to build a program from the ground up to really support these entrepreneurs that have products in market that are fintech products. They're selling through banks, but when they get in the hands of people, really help their lives. So it was really my dream opportunity to combine financial inclusion with really helping startups grow.
Sounds great. I mean, how did you find that move then from, like, say, corporate into the startup world? And what kind of advice would you give to someone thinking about making a similar kind of move and potentially starting their own fintech?
Great question. Honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. It was a difficult decision. Once you're in corporate for a long time, especially over a decade, and you're making money, it's hard to just leave and say, okay, now we're building something new in the world. We're not really getting a salary, or we're getting a small salary if you're joining a team. But it's really rewarding to be really out in the world with unlimited possibilities of what you're building, just connecting, meeting people, bringing people in, and building a new innovation. And so I think it's really important for more people, and I've seen so many people do that and become entrepreneurs, because that's what really changes the world and changes people's lives, like building these technologies and solutions to really make a difference. And like these startups are really leading this innovation in our world. I'd also say you're crazy, because it's really the hardest job in the world. These founders I work with are just incredibly resilient. So I would say it's very accessible with technology to leave and build something. But the hard part is you do need to have some money saved up, because you do need to have money to live on for a while before you're actually going to start making money with the startup. So in that way, it's still not really accessible to everyone, which is a shame. But I would say go for it. If you're really overly passionate about solving a problem and want to build something in the world, I think it's an awesome path.
Great. Before we dive into Cafe, then you're also on the board of a number of social impact aligned organizations. Can you tell us a bit more about those?
Yeah, it's actually, I was thinking about this. It's been a through line for my career, actually. So my whole career on the side, I've really been volunteering and now on the board of a microfinance organization called Micro Dreams Foundation. And so when I learned about microfinance, I hadn't learned about it in school, I learned about it later. But what it is basically teaching a person to fish. So you basically give a person without means business training and small loans to start their own income generating business. And that really provides, as they grow that business, opportunity for themselves, their family, society. So just fell in love with the idea and actually seeing that in action. And so I think it's really powerful. That's all over the world. So we work in the South Pacific. And then other organizations, I was advising a new city based on equitism, so built by the people. So it's really important to me to give back and also be part of these overall really important causes and initiatives.
Sounds great. So I guess can you tell us a bit more then about Cafe then? I mean, how the idea came about and your goals in leading and growing that organization?
Yeah. So as I said, I was really looking to stay in the space to really help startups grow. I got connected through my network. So I think everything is relationship based. Everything's networking. So honestly, I met with everyone I knew and I was like, here's what I want to do. Put myself out there. Like I really want to really work to help companies grow. And I'm really passionate about social impact. And I got connected to a group in Delaware in the United States, which were building the FinTech Innovation Hub, which is an innovation ecosystem in Delaware that was built basically as a private-public partnership. So Discover Financial was involved, the University of Delaware and their AI machine learning resources, the SBDC, which is like helps small businesses in the state, as well as the SBA, Small Business Administration from the government, which we got some initial funding and money for. How do we bring everyone together to really build the future of finance and specifically to advance financial wellness for low to moderate income people? And so I was brought into this initiative to really launch and build a whole new nonprofit that we called Cafe, coming out of this ecosystem, but really as a catalyst of being the center of excellence for this across Americas. And then hopefully we'll go global. The first thing we did though, because we really started with a little bit of funding, basically a piece of paper, amazing partners, like I said, and advisors, but it really was a scrappy startup. So it was just me and came in and I was like, all right, building the community, talking to everyone I knew in banking, investors, in the network industry experts, bringing them into the why, this like amazing mission and idea. And then how do we actually build something actionable that we can show that actually works to help improve these technologies and then people's lives? So what we did first is we, after building and bringing in all these people to the community, built this program over the last year. It's a FinTech accelerator program. And so we've had 2 successful cohorts where we supported 6 companies each in this program. And these companies, they have products already built. They're in market. They have initial customers with big banks or financial services. And they're at the point where they're looking to scale. And so we play in a very specific niche where we're really helping introduce them to investors, to academia, to banking associations, to different industry experts to really help their growth in a number of areas. And the feedback's been awesome in all areas. So yeah, looking forward to continuing really that growth and impact for Cafe.
I mean, I guess against a backdrop of economic uncertainty and the tough macroeconomic climate globally right now, how important of a topic is financial health and wellness at the moment?
I think it's more important than ever. It first starts with education, and I think it's across all income levels. So I know we focus on low to moderate income, but really at all income levels, I think it's the financial education to how to manage your money, what is credit, thinking about all that in finances, but also what are finances? It's really just what you need for other things that are important in your life, right? It's an exchange of value. And so it's really important because it can get you education, food, housing security, family, community. And so thinking about it as a means to an end to really surviving, but also living a good life. And so it's really an important topic, I think, for all levels. And we've been working with banks and entrepreneurs and everyone else. And it's just really important to focus on that because it does, even building products for different wealth levels, it's really important to focus on how does it helping the end people, which is financial wellness. So, and it doesn't matter what you call it. I know in the US now, there's a lot of words that we're not saying, but I don't think it matters, the verbiage. I think it's important for not only communities, but really our economy to provide these access to financial tools and services and education so that everyone can understand and use this to have a better life.
Excellent. And I mean, would you say financial services firms as a whole are doing enough at the moment to support customers when it comes to financial health and wellness, or especially people on low to moderate incomes as well?
Yeah, I do think they're trying. So we work with a lot of banking associations and partners, and some of the fintechs and technologies we're working with, for example, are to provide platforms for better ways for people to get personal loans or small business loans, and those can be sold through credit unions or banks. I do think they're trying. I think the challenge is in many traditional larger banks, everything moves slowly. And so how do we expedite it so it's not years of a sales cycle where there's an amazing technology a fintech can offer and the bank wants to provide that to their customers, but then there's all these approvals and it takes a year or 2 years to really get implemented and get to the end person. And so how do we speed that up? One way that is helping, we have a new partnership with Cafe with a fintech sandbox called Naya One. And I think banks can use that to really like test the new technologies and hopefully bring them on and POCs, like try the products before they bring them on. But I think it's the innovation culture in these large banks can change a little bit to try. Now, of course, you have to manage risk. So with the new technologies and with AI, I'm sure is a hot topic, how do we manage risk in a better way to actually like onboard and implement these technologies more quickly?
Excellent. And I know you've mentioned the Naya One collaboration there, but what are some of the other positive actions financial institutions or fintechs are taking, or even new technologies being developed that have caught your eye to try and boost financial wellness?
Yeah, it's interesting. So just to touch on AI is not a separate thing, right? It's built. So it's a technology that helps enable really other types of solutions and products. And it's funny because I spent so many years in product development, but I would say there's no products anymore. It's all about experiences and how to integrate people's lives and what the end outcome is. But I have noticed that all the startups I work with are either built on AI or with AI. And all the banks also on the other side, like the large players are trying to figure out what to do and how to use that. I would say the areas, it's not like totally new products you never heard of that I'm working with. So when you think of financial health and wellness, like it's not like it's like a separate category, a separate type of product. It's actually like improvements or changes to existing products. Like, is there a new way we can have a bank account that is more accessible for people to get that, or a credit card that you can start building your credit in a secure way, even if you don't have a high credit score? Or like personal loans in the United States, 37% of people don't have $400 if there were like an emergency. So how do they get access to a personal loan, or even if they want to start a small business loan? So making that accessible, less biased, like credit scoring, et cetera. So it's kind of like taking traditional products and then innovating on them to really reach more people.
The Banking Tech Awards 2025 are now officially open for nominations. Whether you're a bank, a fintech, a tech provider, or a rising star, this is your chance to showcase your innovation and excellence to the industry. Don't miss out on our early bird discount, available until the 6th of June. Head over to the Banking Tech Awards website today and you'll find all the information you need to enter. Final nominations closed on the 11th of July, so get set up now and make sure your hard work gets the spotlight it deserves. Visit bankingtechawards.com and get started now.
Obviously, we're just entering spring as we record this now, so the spring accelerator program at the Cafe is just about to get started. I mean, what would you say are some of the key benefits of programs like this for both fintechs getting started, but also potentially the partner banks as well in boosting their awareness of some of the innovative new offerings out there?
It's a great question. There's a lot of fintech accelerator programs out there, or startup accelerator programs out there. And really what I've seen is the really smart founders have figured out that these are pathways to them building really key relationships. And so many of the founders I work with have been through 4 or 5 other programs before they even get to Cafe. because they realize the value in having those warm introductions to potential customers that are financial services or potential intros to investors like venture capital, and just being part of that community. So building up collaboration with other founders, having advisors, meeting people you can bring onto the team. And so I think that the programs are highly beneficial. Cafe is a bit unique because we're not investors. So we don't take equity. So there's no fee as long as you get through the competitive process to be in the program. So there are some trade-offs with some programs about how much equity you're giving up for what the value is. But overall, I would say incredibly beneficial for a startup's growth because it can be lonely. And if you don't have the right connections, like it's hard to kind of break into the industry.
What are some of the companies in this year's cohort then, and what kind of offerings are they developing?
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. So we work with 6 companies at a time, which is very intentional because we're very hands-on for 2 months. I feel like we have, have 6 additional jobs, right? Being part of the team of these companies and really exciting. So I do want to mention all of them. We have Trackstar, which basically like if you have credit errors on your report can help build your credit and like resolve those errors in an easy way. Similar, Dub basically helps look at unbiased like credit scoring so that people with lower credit scores can actually get loans. And all of these solutions I'm mentioning are built with AI inherently in there. Good trust, easier, democratizing a way you can actually build your trust and your legacy and your will. Starlight, how do you get government benefits more easily and search for them, like what you can actually get? Spare, there's virtual ATMs in retailers all over the country. So if you don't live near a bank, how can you get access to the actual money in cash? And then Tazzy AI, really making banking like different AI modules that banks can use to really manage risk, but then also retain customers and really service customers in different ways and reach more LMI customers. So I'm really excited about this cohort, and the past cohorts have been just as strong and we continue to support them. We have a monthly meeting, but also they're all supporting each other, which is the magic. And we continue to support the other ones as well.
Excellent. Sounds great. And you've mentioned the past cohorts there. I mean, what are some of the success stories to come from previous accelerator iterations so far?
Yeah, they're incredible. So we've gotten amazing feedback from the founders that have been in our program. Like I said, many of them they're not new, like they've been around for a while. They have products in market. They've been through a bunch of these programs already. And we've gotten feedback that like, we've been through all the mainstream programs and this one was like our favorite. And I think that's for like a couple of reasons. I think because the mission-driven nature of the founders, like these are good business people. We've got them just like great scalable businesses, useful technologies, but also because they have this mission-driven nature of like solving a problem and helping people. They're just amazing people. And so I think they love building, and now they're all best friends, like making those relationships. Also, we've gotten feedback, like all of the relationships that we connected them to, including like investors and banks and other mentors and industry experts. Some of them have become advisors. Some of them have joined the team. Some of the early bank partnerships, they're working through what those look like in terms of like either selling through like large bank or unfortunately with the long sales cycles, I can't mention like an actual one that's been done because it's still working through because a program has been going on just under a year. But I think there's value that's tangible, but also intangible about being part of this network and having these warm introductions. The other thing I would say that I'm excited about is collaboration between the fintechs. So if you think about it, like it makes sense for some of them to partner, either bring their technologies together or to sell into banks together if they make sense complementary. So in addition to just the founders helping each other, it's actually like making that sale and making that technology together. So there's been a few partnerships, which is awesome because they just naturally occur as the founders come together.
Sounds great. And obviously with your experience, I mean, what would you say are the key challenges for founders when it comes to growing and developing their businesses to get to that next level? And what advice would you give to them for overcoming those?
There are a lot of challenges to overcome. Like I said, with resilience, you need to definitely be resilient. I would say it's really difficult to be a fintech founder because it's a highly regulated industry in the US, but also in many countries around the world. And so as a founder, you're like, I want to solve this problem. It's a burning problem. I'm so passionate about it. And I'm building this amazing technology. And then you're like, okay, now I got to sell into a bank. Oh, wow, I have to like pass all these regulations and this risk and compliance and understand all these changing policies and laws. So it's very challenging. And so I think focusing on that too in the beginning, understanding that environment is really important. Other challenges I would say is the venture capital process. I think A lot of founders look for venture capital money, which is great for certain scalable startups. But others, I think, can be more creative because you can waste a lot of time in front of the wrong VCs. And it's hard to grow a business and also just be in front of like VCs all day long trying to fundraise. So I think it is being very selective and targeted and specific in terms of timing people with VCs, I think is important because that's incredibly challenging for founders. And I would say there's many more challenges we can go through. We don't have time for all of them, but that's what I would say.
And I mean, you must speak to a lot of fintech founders and leaders in your role as well. What is it that you would say would make a great fintech founder, and what characteristics do they need to show?
Well, first, really being passionate, right? And bold. You have to be super passionate about what you're solving for and who your end customer is, who the end people are you're building for. You're going to be talking about this. You're going to be breathing this all day long, 24/7, all week. And so really being passionate about that. I would say the product's important and many founders fall in love with their product and features, but don't get caught in your product and features. It's more about the solution. And there could be different ways of pivoting your products for that too, right? So like really being focused on what you're actually solving for is really important. I would also say being a collaborative founder and good person is super important rather than competitive. So what I've seen, that's the environment we foster in Cafe as a community. And also what I've seen between accelerator programs, between founders, I think there's more and more of that. It's not just like room for one fintech. There's room for many fintechs, even if they're playing in a similar space. And so I think the collaboration really does work in terms of lifting up other founders, recommending them. I don't think the days of like being overly competitive, I don't think work out in the long term. So I think that's something for founders to really be mindful of. And then, yeah, just really like resilient and focused and being able to take opportunities. And so I found the founders of my program, we can lead them to the different opportunities, but it's really up to them to jump and actually follow up with the advisors, follow up with who we introduce them to. So I think it is really being able to be bold enough to make the ask and also follow up with those right opportunities.
Excellent. Sounds great. And I mean, after the Spring Accelerator, what's next for Cafe then? Is there anything in the pipeline you can tell us about now?
Really excited about the future of Cafe. So we always intentionally launched Cafe as not just a fintech accelerator, although we started there because we had to prove that we had a support model, we had an impact model, we could actually execute on something that worked. Now we actually received as a nonprofit some more funding. We've grown the team and we're focusing on additional areas, strategic areas and initiatives. So we do want to be a thought leader in the space of advancing financial wellness through these innovative technologies and working with startups like for across the country. We want to launch additional programs to not only really deep dive with 6 companies, but how do we touch more companies? How do we support more mission-driven fintechs and founders over time? So hoping to announce more on that later this year and what that will look like for others to participate. Also, we're working with subject matter experts and educators on what kind of actionable courses we can offer, for instance, in Gen AI, for other founders that really will be making a meaningful difference in their business. So not school, but like something actionable that founders and CEOs can take to actually, that we can offer through Cafe and package through Cafe that will really make a difference to their growth. And then it's all about community. So I would say for Cafe, we're meeting amazing people all the time, and investors, and bankers, and academia, industry experts, entrepreneurs. And it's all about building our community. And we're really focused on those relationships. So that's my favorite part, like really bringing more people in. And so that's what we continue to do, really bringing more people into our community and our mission and our partners.
Thanks again, Kristen, for chatting with us today. To close out the podcast, we have our now infamous FinTech Jails. This is where we ask for an industry term, buzzword, or trend that you've seen or heard enough of. Or, of course, you can advocate to free one of the previously incarcerated terms. So what's your selection for this week?
Yeah, I'd like to put the word traction in jail. And so many of us in the industry have heard that word too many times, traction, when speaking to venture capital specifically. FinTech founders put together pitch decks and always have to have a traction slide, which what really does that word mean? I think what they're trying to get at is what are the wins, right? Who are your customers? What are you proud of? What are your accomplishments? What are your wins? Can we call it something else instead of traction? That's just seeing, it's like, what about like successes? And then it's always for VCs like, oh, you don't have enough traction. You have too much traction. It's always like that. So I'm thinking like, what if we call it what it is? Like, here are my customers, here are my wins, here's like what I'm proud of, things like that. And what I would say, and this is what I believe in life, is even the little victories. So little victories are like those little things we do each day that add up to like the big changes and the big important things in our lives and in our businesses. And so I think even the little victories should be highlighted.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I mean, this seems pretty clear cut to me. Like I say, it feels traction isn't really descriptive or useful enough for VCs or fintech founders. So I'm more than happy to add it to the jail this week. And we'll see later down the line if anybody wants to come on the show and break it back out again. Although I imagine this one will be in the jail for a while. But for now, Kristen, thank you so much again for joining us for the podcast today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks, of course, to Kristen for joining me. As for FinTech Futures, you can find us online at fintechfutures.com and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn to keep up with the latest fintech news. If you like this podcast and our other episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or your favourite podcasting service to get notified about future episodes. Thanks as well to Arama for editing this podcast. You can check them out at arama.tv. As always, thank you very much for your support, and we'll see you soon for another episode of What the FinTech. But until then, goodbye.